Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ali. And thank you all for joining us. It is lovely to have you with us here this morning. Hope you're now settled and comfortable for the next hour ahead. So I am Sarah Holloway. I'm the Programme Manager for Heritage Open Days. I am a white, middle-aged woman with curly red hair and glasses. And I'm delighted that with me today is Linda Bankier from Berwick Archives. And she will introduce herself shortly, but I'm going to kick us off to begin with. So we will be taking you through today in the next hour just the idea of building a volunteer community at scale. What are the challenges? What are the top tips to making it feel like a volunteer community? And I'll be talking about the national scale, and Linda will be talking about how it works on a town-wide scale. So to start us off on the same page, to give you a bit of an introduction as to where we're at, I'm going to introduce you to Heritage Open Days as a festival. So get ready with the reaction times here, because I'd like to get a sense of how many of you know about Heritage Open Days. So have any of you put your hands up using the raise hand button if you have visited a Heritage Open Day event? Yes, there's a few people there. More of you need to be visiting Heritage Open Days events because it's free and it's brilliant, but that's great. Some of you know what it is. And could you keep your hands up or put your hand up if you have volunteered or organised a Heritage Open Days event? Oh, look, there's 3 people I'm noticing there, 4 people. Marvellous. We love you. We love you. You're amazing. Thank you very much. That's great. Okay, well, to make sure we're all on the same page, I'll just give you a brief overview about Heritage Open Days to kick us off. So if you've not heard of it before, it is England's largest festival of history and culture. We had over 5,800 free events this year on offer, and it attracted 1.3 million visits. It's big. Massive showcase of our incredible heritage sector across England. And those visitors, it's known as a gateway to the sector. It's all free. There's lots of different things on offer. So about a quarter of our visitors every year are people who have not visited a heritage event or attraction in the past 12 months. And not only do they have a great time, we've got great enjoyment scores, not only do they say they're inspired to learn more or visit more, but they actually do. We've got long term, we've been going a long while, so we've been able to track evaluation across years. So we know it does inspire action. So 59%, that's well over half, are actually definitely visiting more often after they've visited a Heritage Open Day event. 8% feels like a small number, but it's not when you look at the scale of it. Actually volunteer more after they've visited an event. So we know lots of people use Heritage Open Days as a volunteer recruitment platform, actually, to get the word out. And the reason it's doing that is that it's not just this big public showcase of our amazing heritage, but it is powered by a volunteer community. And it's that sense of community that really comes through strongly. So 83% of our visitors say that they feel more proud of their local area from visiting a Heritage Open Day event. And for the organisers behind the festival, you can see with these statistics, 91% say meeting new people is a key benefit, 88% say that supporting the community is a key benefit of participating. It is absolutely rooted in community. So publicly known as a big event with lots of free events happening across the country, but it is powered year round by a community. And that's what we're here to talk about today, is how does that magic work? Well, if you're not aware, this is my favourite analogy, is that it's like a tree. So the roots of the tree, the roots of our festival, are European. It started in Europe, about 50 countries take part. We all do it differently, but we are connected and part of a community on that European-wide scale. In England, it is known as Heritage Open Days, and it is run by the National Trust with support from players of People's Postcode Lottery. There's a team of 5 staff members, of which I am one, and we work on it all year round, full time. It does, I promise you, take every ounce of our capacity to do that. That's the tree trunk and the tree roots, but that's not a very lively tree if you don't have the branches. That's the most important part, and that is our festival community. So this year we had over 2,500 local organisers registering events with us. We also had over 100 coordinators pulling things together in their local areas. These are the people that we have direct contact with, and they are our community. And really importantly, they're all volunteers for us. We're not paying them anything. Some of them might be doing it as part of their paid job, but we aren't paying them anything. So to us, they are all volunteers all across the country, all different backgrounds, different settings, different levels of experience. And they themselves are working with volunteers and paid staff. So again, this year, over 44,000 volunteers, over 8,000 paid staff. So it's a huge number of people are involved in putting on the festival each year. Very diverse, but they are so important, and they are what makes the magic happen in September for us. And it's just all about how can we work with them and support them. And I can sit here and talk to you about how it works for them and give you case studies and highlight things. But actually, we always know it's better to hear from someone locally and hear the local perspective from them, not from us. So I'm going to give you more on the national scale in a bit, but right now I'm going to hand you over to one of our local coordinators to talk about her experience. And you'll discover the reason I have invited Linda from Berwick upon Tweed to talk about how it works there is because their programme, it's been going for a long time, it's absolutely brilliant. It was described to me as Disneyland. If you like heritage, go to Berwick upon Tweed in September. It's like Disneyland. And they were not wrong. There is like a treasure trail of pink bunting where you keep discovering new bits. It's wonderful. But the key part of it is the people that you meet. The volunteer community that Linda has built there is extraordinary. They're absolutely delightful. They're clearly having fun. They clearly feel connected, and they're very diverse. It's just fantastic. So there was nobody else that I could ask really to join me for this session. So enough from me for now. I am going to hand over to the wonderful Linda from Berwick. Over to you.
Thank you, Sarah. I hope I can meet expectations with that introduction. First of all, can I apologize to you all? I cannot get my camera to work today, so you will not be able to see me. So I will describe myself. I'm Linda Bankier, as we said. I'm an older white female with light brown hair. So really sorry that I can't get my camera to work. We have tried. So, as Sarah said, I'm involved with Berwick Heritage Open Days, which we often just shorten to HODS, Berwick HODS, that's what we call it. Just to give you a bit of background, Berwick is the most northerly community which takes part in Heritage Open Days, National Heritage Open Days in England. We're a very small town of about 12,000 inhabitants, and we're very close to the border of Scotland as well. We have actually taken part since the very beginning. Early 1990s is when Berwick started taking part in this. So we've got a really long tradition of doing it. When we first started, we only had 12 events. But in 2025, we actually ran 100 events over the 10 days. So that is a challenge in itself, trying to keep it all in our heads and make sure that everything runs smoothly. My job is the overall volunteer, the coordinator for the whole of the event, the festival. And I really do this. I do this on a volunteer basis. This is out with my main job as the archivist for Berwick and looking after all the archives. But there is an overlap between the two because obviously there's the heritage connection. We've no paid staff whatsoever, so it's all about volunteers. We all do it on a volunteer basis, so it really depends on the goodwill of us as volunteers, but also of the town as well. I originally got involved as a volunteer back in 2000, but since 2018, I've been the coordinator for our steering group to actually run the event because it got so big. And for me, it's a wonderful way just to give something back to the town and also for people to help people to appreciate the heritage of Berwick, because we have got so much. We've got lots of buildings, but we've also got a unique history and culture, and heritage is very much a part of it. And really as well, we support the local economy. Our event is free, but we get visitors coming to Berwick. We get loads of support from the national team as well. Really, we can't do it without Sarah and the rest of the team, who give us advice, provide a national platform for all the events that we're doing. We can promote them locally, but just being able to have that national platform really helps us. And from the point of view of locally, Berwick Hods is really important because we're a part of a whole series of annual festivals that go on each year. Ours, unlike most of them, is free, but also crucially, ours takes place at the same time every year and has a set time frame. So that really helps us. It did used to just be one weekend. So actually trying to organise events over 10 days is challenging. So next slide, please, Sarah. If we just talk about the local volunteer community in Berwick, how is it made up? Well, to start with, I would say that volunteering in Berwick is very much a part of Berwick as a town, because we have a high percentage of retired people, and people love to volunteer, which is actually a great advantage to us. At the top, we have our steering group, and that is made up of 6 volunteers who all have different roles to make sure that the actual festival runs smoothly. And on top of that, we've got 60 of our own volunteers who support Berwick Hods. And what they do is they cover the venues that we actually have to man ourselves to make sure that they can open, and they steward at exhibitions. They do a real variety of things, and actually we couldn't do it without them. And then on top of that, we obviously, there are other sites that are open, and they have about 40 volunteers themselves. So, we're talking about over 100 people who support this 10-day event in Berwick. They come from various organisations like the Civic Society, my own friends' organisation, churches, U3A, people who move to the town, want to know about its history, etc. And a lot of it is friends and family of organisers. So we really put our network out wide, and they're all local volunteers. Age range, age 20 right through to 90. One of the members of my steering group has just had her 90th birthday. So it's lovely to have that big mix and to see how people get on as well as part of that. At the moment, people are only volunteering over the weekend, but we are trying to expand that, going for a bit of funding so that we can upskill our volunteers. But really at the moment, people are just doing it over the weekend. Managing this is a huge job in itself, but we do it. The steering group are crucial for this, and the event wouldn't happen without them. And as you can see there, we can see that, and this is a really conservative estimate, we probably put in about 1,200 volunteers just to run Heritage Open Days in Berwick. And really, that's just the tip of the iceberg, because there are a lot more hours really put in than that. So what are the challenges that we face as a local event? Well, I think capacity more than anything else. We are all doing it as volunteers, so we all have other commitments. I have a full-time job, as well as doing Heritage Open Days. So, that's a real thing for us. So it's trying to find the time to do all this. But really, we do it because we love our town and we really think heritage is worth promoting. So there's the capacity for the steering group, but there's also the capacity for the volunteers. We don't want to overburden them with what we're asking them to do. We want them to enjoy it and feel comfortable in what we're doing. So, that capacity, we're very aware of volunteers' capacity and not asking them to do things that they don't want to do. I have seen it in other situations where people have volunteered and really they've been given jobs that they don't want to do, or they're being asked to do too many hours. So it's really important just to think about that as you go along. Recruitment is also something as well. How do you get all the volunteers that you're going to need? And how do you keep them on board? Keep your older ones, the ones that have done it for a while, keep them coming. But also, how do you attract new ones? Because I think it's really important to keep encouraging more people to get involved. Because if, most of our volunteers are older, eventually they're going to get to the stage where they can't do it anymore. So we really need to have young people coming in and volunteering. And we're not a university town, so that can be quite difficult to get young people involved. So that is a challenge for us. And then obviously as well, another challenge is continuity. So how do we keep the volunteers involved? How do we make them come back? How do we encourage them to come back year after year? What do we do to do that? And I think for us, a real challenge has been the job of volunteer coordinator. I would say within the steering group, this is the hardest job for someone to take on, because you're managing so many people. This year, we have a new volunteer coordinator. So basically, she's had a baptism of fire because she's had to learn how it all runs, but also actually do it all as well. So it's that continuity is really important as a challenge. So what are our solutions? How do we cope with all of this? I think from the capacity point of view is you absolutely need to share the work. And get everyone involved and doing things which they want to do. So from the point of view of the steering group, we all have different roles within the steering group. I manage all of it, oversee it all, but everyone on the steering group has a particular element of the festival that they're responsible for. So we've got the volunteer coordinator who looks after all the volunteers. We've got someone who looks after the website. We've got someone who runs all the social media. We've got another lady who looks after all the admin, all the bookings. We've got someone who does all the design for our leaflets, booklets, posters, everything like that. So everyone's got a particular job. And I think that really helps make sure that we can cover everything that we have to do. Obviously, there's things like risk assessments as well. So that's part of my job to do that. Part of my job is to actually register all the events and just have an overview. But we're all working to our own talents and capabilities. And that's really important from the point of view of the steering group. But what about the volunteers themselves? Well, you need to make sure that you've got enough of them. And you also need to make sure that they're comfortable in what they're doing and that you provide them with enough information so that they feel confident about undertaking the role that they're doing, because they could be just helping to make sure that a site's open, so they need information. They could be stewarding at an exhibition. They could be the back marker for a guided walk. So it's just making sure that you have enough of them and not overburdening them. So really what we tend to do is make sure that we just give them short slots, 2 hours, but also ask them things like, do you need a seat? What would you prefer to do? So really involve them in what they're doing, because that just makes it far more of an enjoyable experience for them. And I would say that I would never ask anyone to do anything in a volunteering capacity that I'm not prepared to do myself. I think that's very important as well. So recruitment is tailoring the offer. So that is having that dialogue with your volunteers, making sure that they know what they're going to do, making sure that it fits in with their schedule, and just just making them feel happy in what they're doing. We do contact lots of local organisations to see if people can help. And we've got a poster as well that we send out saying, we need people, come and contact us. So the volunteer forum in the town has been really helpful doing that. As are things like the U3A, Friends, Civic Society. We use our local contacts as a steering group and as people. And actually we use our volunteers as well, because word of mouth is so important. If they've enjoyed it, we ask them, well, is there anyone else you know who would like to take part? We'll ask them to get in contact with us. And we have had volunteers come to that this way as well. And maybe another way to look at it from a recruitment point of view, if you have big businesses around you who maybe offer their employees the opportunity to volunteer, maybe for 1 or 2 days. That's another way of getting people. We've certainly, one of our younger volunteers, she's come to us because her employers allow her to do voluntary work, 2 days a year. So she gives up her time for that. And from the point of view of the steering group, the person that does the social media, again, she doesn't live in Berwick, but her employers allow her 2 days. So she uses those 2 days to come home and volunteer at the festival. So, there are lots of ways that you can do the recruitment to make sure that you've got enough people. And the other thing is the continuity. I think it has to be enjoyable. Look at the faces of our volunteers here. They're all smiling because they are all having a great time. They really enjoy it. And that's because they're meeting people, they're talking to people, and people who are coming enjoy finding out about what they're doing. And I think as part of that is the continuity and why people come back is that we show appreciation to them for what they do. We know they're giving up their time to us. Sometimes it can be awful weather standing out there with their high-vis jacket, but they do it because they love it. So, we need to show them appreciation. So we appreciate that during our 10 days of Berwick Odds, we can't do anything to say thank you to them. But what we do is we hold a coffee morning afterwards where they've all got the opportunity to get together socially, have a chat, and they can have a good laugh about what they've done and things that have happened. And also from a continuity point of view, keep them informed about what is going on. We don't overburden them with emails, but we give them the information that they need. So they know, for example, they're given information about the sites that they're covering. They know that they can contact the volunteer coordinator. She contacts them about the program. Do you want to do this? Does this work for you? It's all that information gathering, and also the fact that we have a corporate identity through Heritage Open Days. They've all got their pink lanyards. We've got our high-vis jackets, and they just wander around the town and people see them. So that continuity is so important. And also from the point of view of people joining us, we try, when we've got people at sites, they're not on their own, there's at least 2 of them, but we will try and match someone who's experienced at doing it with someone who's just starting out, so that no one ever feels that they're out of their depth as part of it. So that just kind of gives you a bit of an idea of how we approach it at Berwick. Can I just say, it's a wonderful thing in Berwick. People look forward to Heritage Open Days in Berwick, either taking part or going round. And, we've had nearly 15,000 visits to our sites over in 2025. And really, the importance and why it all works is because of the volunteers. We can't do this without them. So I'm going to hand back to Sarah, who's going to talk a bit more about the national perspective, but hopefully that's given you an insight of how it works on the local level.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Linda. And we're seeing it with the reactions here. Just so valuable to hear that local perspective of what the challenges are and how you approach them in beautiful Berwick. On a national scale, we have some of the same, but our biggest challenge is this concept of this enormous community that is so disparate, so diverse, different levels of experience, someone who's done things like this many, many times, someone who's never done it before in their life. or from different places. They've got different settings, museums, town halls, but we also have factories, sewage works, council offices. We've got amazing railways and canal networks, and gardens and nature reserves. So really different backgrounds and different settings. And they're all over the country. So much as I would love to gather everybody in one room, to have a really good sense of community meeting, that's not physically possible for us. We have local meetings, but we can't do one to make people feel part of that big national community. They're very different aims, but they're all united by one thing. And that is they have a passion for sharing stories about heritage, which has come through in what Linda was saying. And that's what binds us all together. So that's really our starting point. But this is our approach to making them feel like a national community. The overriding thing is setting the tone. This isn't rocket science. We all know this. It's about making people feel welcome. And for us, it is very much being at every point, from recruiting people to every meeting, every email that we send out, that same tone that it's coming from a human being, that we're here together as a community, and inviting feedback, encouraging them to feedback to us, listening to them. And this concept for us of there are no silly questions. It is a level playing field. It does not matter if you're the chief executive of a very big museum or if you are an individual passionate volunteer that wants to do a guided walk. You are all on an equal level when you join the Heritage Open Days community. And all your questions are equally valid, and we want to hear them. So setting that tone, making people feel comfortable, is the primary thing that we have to do for our community to make them feel like a community. I've talked about making space for that feedback, but also setting boundaries. This actually comes a little bit into, Frankie, you've asked a question that we're in the chat that we'll come to again later, but we have a code of conduct, and that is tied into every organizer that participates, but it is also valid for every visitor. So anyone that has any contact with Heritage Open Days, we do have a code of conduct about what we expect. And it helps us set boundaries with our community in terms of the organizers and coordinators. It helps them set it with their volunteers, but they can also draw on it if they're having difficult experiences with their visitors. About, we want people to respect each other, particularly for a festival that is this diverse and that encourages people to come together in that way. It's really important. So making space, but setting boundaries, and also in terms of the communication, setting expectations, what we expect from people and when things are going to happen, and keeping them informed, which Linda talked about. The other key element for us is highlighting that it isn't just us nationally, that we're here to support nationally, but it is this community of incredible people. So we emphasize peer-to-peer learning at every opportunity. We have case studies on our website. Every year I ask for more. And in every meeting and in every webinar, I encourage that there is a section that is called the Organizer Spotlights, where I will invite a member of the community to share their experiences. Is this sounding familiar, as you've just heard from Linda? I could not deliver this session without inviting one of the community to talk about it from their perspective. It's a key part of how we operate. So that peer-to-peer learning. And leading on from that is to encourage networking. Not just that they sort of join just once, but to encourage them to talk to each other. And that can be difficult when you're really widespread across the country. So the way we do it is we have an organizer area that online that's not just full of resources and training materials. It also has a database where they can search for other people in the community. That could be people who are local to them, or it could be people who are from a similar setting. For example, Martello Towers is a very distinctive coastal defence structure, and it's on the east and the southern coasts, and they can find each other through the network to talk about their specific needs and challenges and opportunities to share their experiences. And we encourage them to talk not just for the festival, but beyond, for wider work. We're just the sort of funnel to get things kick-started. We have a Facebook group, and we also do individual introductions to people. We will recommend people to each other to chat. And on that note, it's enough from hearing from my national voice. I've given you a little bit, a very brief, because we don't have a lot of time, overview of our festival, of our community, of the way that we work. But we really want to encourage you to network, to share your experiences. So in a moment, we will go into breakout groups. And I know for some of us, you hear that word and your heart sinks. Please bear with us. Remember, you are in this space. It's a friendly community. There are no silly questions. We just want to hear from you if at all possible, or listen in to each other. So when you go into the breakout groups, you will have at least 10 minutes. You might hopefully get 15, because we know that it takes a while to gear up. I want you to think about, how does the volunteer community work in your area? What scale are you working at? What are your challenges and top tips? And remember, when you come out of this discussion, I would like you to be able to share one of your greatest challenges and one of your top tips to make people feel part of a volunteer community. You will be reminded. And if you go into a group and you're all feeling a bit shy, I'm going to nominate the person who alphabetically by surname has the name closest to the beginning of the alphabet. Please kick things off. And please don't worry, you are among friends. You're going to be brilliant. Just say, hello, I'm Sarah from Heritage Open Days, and what your volunteer context is. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Welcome. Just letting you get yourselves settled back in the main room. I'm sorry, it always feels quite brutal in an online meeting when you bring people back from breakout rooms. You're probably halfway in the middle of a discussion, or halfway through a sentence. So really sorry, but we have to bring you back so that we can send you on to the rest of the conference. I hope that was useful for you all, and you've had a good conversation once we got past that awkward who's going to start talking. Does anyone have a top tip to share, or a greatest challenge to share from your discussion groups?
I can break the radio silence.
Please do. Hello, Gabrielle.
Hello. I think we were talking about how easy it is to build community when people come with a passion for what the organisation does, and therefore reflection on how can we make that as apparent as possible. You know, what's the organisation's mission, vision, values, and that people. I feel that volunteers get a sense of community when they join an organisation where they're like, I believe in that, I want to be part of it, even if they're not necessarily meeting the whole team because they're in on a particular day and not seeing each other across the room.
Yeah, that's great. That's such a great point. That idea of, they're signing on for one, they've got this far to come to you to volunteer with you. You've got a great starting point, like letting out that this is what we're here for, that passion and enthusiasm, and putting it in there. It's also part of that setting boundaries. So helpful. Thank you so much, Gabrielle. Where are you from, Gabrielle? It helps to have a sense of what kind of.
Yeah, sorry. I'm the volunteer coordinator at Glasgow Women's Library in Glasgow.
Fabulous. Go Women's Library. Brilliant. I do feel like we are talking a lot about England today because this is an England festival, but as I said, it's European wide. So in Scotland, it's known as Doors Open Days. In Wales, it is Open Doors Days. In Northern Ireland, it is European Heritage Open Days. As you can see, we all run it in our own ways, slightly differently. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I can see some people putting stuff in the chat around what you've discussed.
Yeah. I think Pat has a reflection. Pat, if you'd like to go ahead.
Yes, hi. We had a chat about tours a little bit because like Heritage Open Days and like volunteers leading tours and stuff because we're looking to do it at the Political Library where I'm from maybe next year. And we have a lot of 19th century books in our collection, 25,000 of them. A lot of them discuss and do mention racist terms and illustrations. It's really, really hard to use and to put into context. So we're chatting in our group, also sharing about how do we make it consistent to volunteers who feel the confidence to talk about it, where's the resources, and what to do if those type of questions that could be controversial, uncomfortable were raised during tours and stuff, which is quite useful. It's also a lot to ask volunteers to answer some certain questions as well, and how do we make sure that they feel comfortable to react to the tour groups that's open to the public on that.
That's great. That's such a great point, and especially in this day and age, it's just really important to set boundaries and make people aware of all the different perspectives and how to handle them. And I think, Frankie, you had a question about that earlier, about opening up and then dealing with visitors not having I've got all my words mixed up. I do apologise. I clearly need another cup of tea. And this is where I'm setting the tone of it's okay to fluff up sometimes. Okay, folks? So thank you so much, Pat, for raising that. We've got a really good case study this year that I would recommend people have a look at. That is not specifically on that topic of the challenging histories. Well, it is a challenging history. It's called Forgotten Princess, and it's a story about the Duleep Singh family, and it's a story about mental health and women's history. And it was a young researcher who put on an event for it, absolutely brilliant event, but she went into it in partnership with the Samaritans to help her and to help her handle questions that might come up, because it's a very sensitive subject. So it's also, if anyone's reading that case study, we've put a warning at the top. It is a sensitive subject. It does deal with themes of suicide. So it's a tricky subject. So it's about getting the right help on board. You're not alone. Again, you're working with your volunteer community, but make sure you've got, as volunteer managers, got backup in terms of how to support people in the best way. Wonderful to see some other comments in the chat. If anyone else wants to come off mute and share their stories, that would be wonderful. Anne, you've just commented about that sense of creating a sense of community when your sites are very geographically spread out. Did you have any solutions for that in your chat?
We talked a little bit about volunteer forums. The sort of like, I'd love to be able to take some of our volunteers to some of the sites that are and like do a swap, so you do somebody else's role for the day. But as ever, it's budgets, restrain. It costs a lot of money to go from Leeds to Portsmouth with a van of volunteers. So it's that frustration that you can do things virtually, but it's just so much better to do things in person and walk in somebody else's shoes for a little while. And I think that's the frustration we've got.
Yeah, absolutely. That's kind of, well, we have it, as I've said, we're nationwide and we can't get out there, but it's really important for us, and we're trying to do more of it, is to actually get out and meet people and see what it's like in their area and connect them in their area, or to provide that online space, which is not right for everybody, but some kind of online space, and encourage conversation online. And that's where setting the tone is really important, to kind of encourage that conversation, to keep the sort of the chat going.
Sarah,
wonderful.
Victoria's
Yes.
got an interesting reflection as well. Victoria, do you want to ask that question or make that reflection?
Hi, yeah, I was just kind of responding to Anne's comment. I work at Rural Museums Greenwich, so what I would describe as rivalry is more, maybe it comes across as passion. Our volunteers at the Cutty Sark are very, very passionate about being at the Cutty Sark versus those who are at the National Maritime Museum. So they don't necessarily like to mix that much. They like to have their groups at each site, and they hang out with each other quite a lot in those groups. And so we have to try and figure out ways of bringing them together, whether that's at annual celebration events during Volunteers Week, or I mentioned that we try and organise monthly reciprocal visits. And we are starting to see a bit more of a mix, which is fantastic. But the main one is the Cutty Sark. I have had a few volunteers say, I've never met a volunteer from the Cutty Sark. And so we're trying to address that, and hopefully, see a bit more socialising, because I think that they would get along with each other. They might find lifelong friends. They just don't really want to go out of their comfort zone, I think is the issue.
Yeah, that is such a really valuable reflection, Victoria. Thank you. That kind of like, everyone's really interested in their own little group. That's where they're comfortable, and sort of getting people to come out of that zone and encourage them to meet other people. And when they do, they tend to really enjoy it, but it's just encouraging that. So again, from our perspective, our top tip is always to lean into what they really love. So getting them to talk about themselves. So if you invite them to talk about themselves, at another group, it kind of can give them the first way in, is how we do it with that peer-to-peer case studies. I'm just sorry, I'm so sorry everyone, I'm just realizing the time. We had extra time in the first session, but we've been really chatty this session, so we haven't had quite as much time, but we wanted to give you longer in the breakouts for you to discuss bits and pieces. So please do put any extra notes in the chat that people can share and comment on. But I'm going to wrap us up now so that I don't make you late for the next bit of the conference. So just bear with me while I just show you those essential extra bits that we have to wrap up with before we finish. Just quickly wrapping up, these were our top tips from Linda and I about being welcoming, tailoring your offer to different things, encouraging feedback, keep people informed, and set those boundaries, so important. But the show appreciation is the big one. To be honest, the show appreciation and the be welcoming, it coming back to that setting the tone, playing into people's interests, and sort of leaning in from that, work from there. And it works really well to make a community. So quickly, so that you're aware, the next bits, you will have all this information in a digital tote bag. This is our contact details. There are the links to our website where you can find out lots more information, included Linda's wonderful case study, which was specifically from her experience doing our New Wave youth engagement program with one of her younger volunteers. So you'll get that perspective on that case study. Please do contact us with any questions. We're here to support and help. The digital tote bag, you will see this flashed everywhere, will be on this QR code. You will be able to access it at all times. But for now, I'm going to wrap us up very quickly by saying thank you for you to joining us and contributing. So important. We can't be here without your discussions. Many thanks to Ali, who has been our amazing tech host today. Super helpful, keeping me on track and target when I'm not familiar with Zoom. Thank you so much, Ali. And then a massive, massive thank you to Linda from Berwick Archives. Where would I be without my amazing volunteer community? And Linda has just done such a fantastic case study for us today. So thank you, Linda. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your conference. You should be able to return to the main room on that link, but you'll need to exit this one to come back into the next one. And again, thank you so much. And do just come back with any questions, message me, or anything I wasn't clear on.